This is a B2 listening test. Part 1. You will hear people talking in 8 different situations. For questions 1 to 8, choose the best answer, A, B, or C. Question 1. You hear a librarian giving an announcement to students.
Can I have your attention for just a minute, please? I've noticed that a number of books have recently gone missing from the reference section. I want to remind you all that those books are not allowed to be taken out of the library. They're meant to stay here so that everyone has equal access to them. If you need a copy for longer use, you can request it at the front desk, and we'll order it for you if it's available. I also want to encourage you to take advantage of the digital resources we've expanded. Many of the materials you're struggling to find on the shelves are available online through our library website. Please treat our resources with care so they remain useful for everyone.
Question 2. You hear 2 friends talking about their plan to visit Africa.
I've been looking at maps and travel blogs all week, and I'm starting to realize how big Africa actually is. I don't think 2 weeks is enough to see everything we want.
Exactly. That's why we need to be realistic. My dream has always been to go on a safari, so I'd love to start in Kenya. Imagine seeing lions and elephants up close, not in a zoo, but in the wild.
That would be amazing. But I'd also like to explore a city. I've heard Cape Town in South Africa is incredible with its mountains, beaches, and food markets. It would give us something completely different from the safari experience.
I agree. If we combine both, it'll feel like 2 trips in one. Adventure in nature and culture in the city. We'll just have to plan the travel carefully so we don't spend too much time moving from place to place.
Good point. Flights within Africa can be expensive. We should check the budget first. But I think if we stay a few days in each country, it's doable.
Yes, and even if it means skipping other countries this time, we can always plan another trip in the future. Africa's too big to explore all at once anyway.
Exactly. Let's sit down this weekend, compare flight options, and then book before the prices go up.
Question 3. You hear 2 friends talking about a capoeira class.
Hey, you mentioned you were trying something new this month. Was it capoeira?
Yes. I went to my first class last week, and honestly, it was nothing like I expected.
Really? I thought it was just some kind of martial art.
That's what I thought too, but it's more like a mix of martial arts, dance, and even music. At first, I felt a bit lost because the movements are fast and completely different from anything I've done before.
Sounds intense. Did you feel out of place?
Not at all, actually. The atmosphere was really welcoming. Everyone clapped and sang while people practiced in the circle, so you felt supported instead of judged. The teacher kept reminding us it's more about rhythm and cooperation than showing off strength, which helped me relax.
So, you enjoyed it in the end?
Yes! I was completely exhausted afterwards, but it felt amazing, like I'd had a workout and learned about another culture at the same time.
Question 4. You hear a cooking teacher telling her students about the dish they are going to make.
All right, class. Today we're going to prepare a traditional Italian risotto. Now, don't be fooled into thinking it's easy just because the ingredients are simple: rice, stock, onions, and a little cheese. What really matters is the method. The most important thing to remember is that you cannot simply pour in all the liquid at once and then walk away. If you do that, the rice will either burn on the bottom of the pan or stay hard in the middle. The secret is to add the stock gradually, one ladle at a time, and stir constantly. That's how the rice slowly releases its starch and becomes creamy. I know some of you might get impatient and think, I'll just let it cook by itself. But please don't. That's the quickest way to ruin it. If you stay focused, stir carefully, and resist the temptation to rush, you'll end up with a perfect risotto. And trust me, the result is worth the effort.
Question 5. You hear a woman and her fitness instructor talking about her workout plan.
I've been sticking to the same workout schedule for almost 2 months now. I thought I'd be seeing some real progress by this point, but instead, I just feel drained. Some mornings I wake up already tired, and dragging myself to the gym feels like such a chore.
That's actually a pretty common problem. When you push your body too much without enough recovery, it can backfire. But before you think about quitting, remember that the issue usually isn't that you're training at all. It's how you're training.
That makes sense. I definitely don't want to quit. I actually enjoy being active, but lately it feels like I'm just going through the motions. I do the same weight routine on the same days, and honestly, I've started dreading it because it's so repetitive.
Exactly. Repetition can make you plateau both physically and mentally. Your muscles stop responding, and your motivation drops. What you need isn't necessarily more effort, but a smarter plan. For instance, adding swimming once a week could improve endurance, and yoga could help flexibility and recovery.
I've never really considered yoga, but I can see how mixing it in could help. Plus, swimming sounds fun. It's a completely different kind of workout.
Right, and it's not just about physical variety. New activities keep your mind engaged too, which means you're more likely to stay consistent. And don't forget, rest days are just as important as training days.
So what you're saying is that I don't need to train harder. I need to train smarter by switching things up and giving my body time to recover.
Exactly. That's the key to breaking through your slump and keeping yourself motivated long term.
Then I'm all for it. Let's plan a new routine with more variety and some recovery built in.
Question 6. You hear a store manager talking about a new policy.
Good morning, team. Before we open the doors today, I'd like to go over an important update regarding our return and exchange policy. Starting next Monday, customers will only have 21 days to bring back items, instead of the 30 days we allowed before. This change wasn't made lightly. After reviewing our sales records, we noticed that many products were being returned after weeks of use, and it was creating real difficulties in tracking our stock and keeping our shelves properly filled. Shortening the return period will help us stay more organized and reduce losses. Now, I understand this adjustment may cause some concern. A few customers may not be happy at first, and you might hear complaints. But it's worth remembering that many major retail chains already use the same or even stricter return policies. So in fact, we're simply aligning ourselves with standard practice. What matters most is how we communicate this to shoppers. Whenever you're processing a return, please make sure you explain the policy clearly and politely. If someone gets frustrated, reassure them that we're still offering both refunds and exchanges, just within a shorter time frame. And remember, you don't need to handle serious confrontations on your own. If things get difficult, call me over and I'll step in. Let's all work together to make this change run smoothly.
Question 7. You hear a woman talking about her children.
Honestly, my children couldn't be more different in their personalities. Yet they both share this boundless energy and curiosity that keeps me on my toes. My son, the older one, is absolutely fascinated by how things work. Just last week, he took apart an old alarm clock we no longer used, and he spent the entire afternoon trying to reassemble it piece by piece. He didn't quite succeed, but the sparkle in his eyes as he explained what each part might do told me how much he enjoys the process of discovery. He's constantly asking questions, sometimes more than I can answer, and if you give him a book about machines or space, you won't hear from him for hours. My daughter, though, has a very different kind of curiosity. She's happiest when she's outdoors, racing around with the neighborhood children or making up imaginative adventure stories. One day she'll be a pirate looking for treasure. The next, she's leading an expedition through an imaginary jungle. She's always climbing trees, building little forts, or inventing new games. Sitting still for too long simply isn't in her nature. Both of them are lively and creative, always moving from one idea to the next. Of course, keeping up with that level of energy can sometimes be a challenge for me, but truthfully, I admire it. I think their eagerness to explore, whether it's through books or through play, is something that will really serve them well as they grow up.
Question 8. You hear two students talking about a documentary by a famous historian they watched.
Hey, did you finally watch that documentary by the famous historian, Professor Whitmore? I know it was part of the assignment for our history seminar.
Yeah, I did. Honestly, I thought it would just be another boring lecture on screen, but I was surprised by how engaging it turned out to be.
Same here. I expected something really heavy with endless dates and battles, but instead, he told the stories in such a clear way. I could actually follow the chain of events without feeling lost.
Exactly. I think the way he broke things down into small logical parts really helped. And the visuals, old maps, animations, even interviews with other experts, kept it interesting.
Right. I noticed he didn't just throw information at us. He sort of connected it to present-day issues, which made it feel more relevant.
That's true. I actually caught myself paying attention the whole time, which doesn't always happen with academic documentaries.
Same. I was expecting to zone out, but instead I ended up taking more notes than I planned.
I know what you mean. The only thing is, there were still a lot of names and dates, more than I could remember.
Yeah, that's the only part I struggled with too. But at least the main ideas stuck with me. And that's probably what will matter most for the exam.
Definitely. So, in the end, I'd say it was much more accessible than either of us expected.
Couldn't agree more.
Now turn to part 2. You will hear a man talking about the invention of the airplane. For questions 9 to 18, complete the sentences with a word or short phrase. You now have 30 seconds to look at part 2.
For centuries, people dreamed of flying, often inspired by watching birds in the sky. Before the airplane was invented, inventors tried many ways to achieve flight, including hot air balloons and gliders. While balloons could float in the air, they could not be steered properly, and gliders required strong winds to stay up. What the world needed was a machine that was both powered and controllable. In the early 20th century, two American brothers, Orville and Wilbur Wright, worked tirelessly on this challenge. They combined careful observation, engineering skill, and repeated testing. After years of experiments, they designed a plane with a lightweight engine, wooden propellers, and wings that could be controlled using a system of wires and pulleys. This allowed the pilot to balance the aircraft in the air. On December 17, 1903, at Kitty Hawk in North Carolina, the Wright brothers made their historic flight. Orville flew the first plane for only 12 seconds, but this short journey proved that powered, controlled flight was possible. In the years that followed, airplanes improved rapidly, with stronger engines, metal frames, and greater distances achieved. The invention of the airplane revolutionized travel, connecting distant places in ways people had never imagined. It also transformed trade, warfare, and even communication. Today, air travel has become a normal part of everyday life, yet it all began with that first brief flight on a windy beach more than a century ago.
Now turn to part 3. You will hear 5 different people talking about how they feel about their free time activities. For questions 19 to 23, choose from the list A to H what each person feels about their hobby. You now have 30 seconds to look at part 3. Speaker 1.
After work, I usually head straight to the swimming pool. Some people think of it as just exercise, but for me, it's much more than that. The rhythm of swimming back and forth clears my head, and I always leave feeling calmer. It's become my way of switching off from the pressure of my job.
Speaker 2.
I've been playing the guitar for a few years now. At first, it was frustrating because I couldn't get the chords right. But once I improved, I started writing my own songs. It doesn't matter if anyone hears them. The process of creating music is what gives me the most joy.
Speaker 3.
Every weekend I go hiking with a group of friends. The physical challenge is one thing, but what I really value is the social side. We share food, stories, and plenty of laughter. Through this hobby, I've met people I would never have come across otherwise, and many of them have become close friends.
Speaker 4.
I used to love video gaming, but lately it's lost its appeal. I find myself doing the same missions over and over, and it doesn't feel exciting anymore. Sometimes I keep playing out of habit, but honestly, I think I should look for something new.
Speaker 5.
My hobby is woodworking. It takes hours to design, cut, and put the pieces together. But when I finally finish a table or a chair, I feel proud. Even if the result isn't perfect, knowing that I created something with my own hands gives me a real sense of accomplishment.
Now turn to part 4. You will hear an interview with a chef talking about her experiences in the culinary world. For questions 24 to 30, choose the answer A, B, or C, which best fits according to what you hear. You now have 30 seconds to look at part 3.
Today, we're joined by Chef Elena Marquez, who has worked in restaurants across 3 continents. Elena, could you start by telling us how you first became interested in cooking?
Certainly. I grew up in a small coastal town in Spain, and my grandmother owned a bakery. I spent countless afternoons there, learning how to knead dough and prepare pastries. At first, it felt more like play than work. But over time, I realized food could actually connect people, even strangers, in a special way. That's when I knew I wanted to pursue it seriously.
What was the most challenging part of your training?
Without doubt, the long hours. In culinary school, our days often began at 5 a.m. and ended close to midnight. It wasn't just physical exhaustion, it was also the pressure to be creative while meeting exacting standards. There were times I questioned whether I could handle it, but the discipline it instilled has stayed with me ever since.
And after training, you worked in several countries. Which experience shaped you the most?
Working in Japan changed me profoundly. The respect for ingredients there is extraordinary. Even something as simple as a cucumber is treated with such care. It made me slow down and appreciate subtle flavors, rather than trying to impress with bold techniques all the time.
Do you think television cooking shows reflect the real world of professional kitchens?
To a certain extent, yes. They show the intensity and sometimes the chaos, but what they often leave out is the teamwork. A kitchen cannot function without trust between cooks. The drama makes for good television. But in reality, the best kitchens are those where people support one another rather than compete.
Finally, what advice would you give to young people hoping to become chefs?
Be prepared to work harder than you imagine, but also remember why you started. If you hold on to your passion for food, the long hours and frustrations become easier to endure. And never stop tasting, experimenting, and learning from others. That's what keeps the craft alive.